whenever I hear one of my favourite bands, Australian bands, comes from Adelaide, the Mark of Cain. So whenever I hear the Adelaide scene, they're the first band that I think of. Do bands like the Mark of Cain and Life Pilot and that like, do they do a good job of representing the kind of talent you have there, or a totally shit job? Is it a very varied thing?
Yeah, it's a really good question, I reckon, because I'm a massive Mark of Cain fan myself. And in fact, as a drummer, one of my all-time favourite drummers is John Stanier. So I can tell you a funny story about that, but let's not go into that right now. But the Mark of Cain have been around for, 30, 40 years and representing Adelaide music really, really bloody well, I would have thought, considering, that they've been around for a long time. But I think it's probably just a little disappointing that, from my perspective, you see a lot of, Australian bands playing shows 20, 30, 40 years in the system now. It's kind of like, we're ready for a bit of a refresh on what the scene, who represents the scene and what it looks like in the modern era. Even though we're a bunch of old guys that grew up listening to those bands and going to those shows, what it looks like for a younger person in Adelaide at the moment, I think is a little undefined. So, I think they fly the flag incredibly well, but I also feel like we're ready for a bit of a refresh, and there's some new bands who are really terrific, very very listenable, very popular, but just don't quite have that scene to fold into yet.
It's interesting because an example of the younger generations of bands actually shares the drummer with the Mark of Cain. So Eli Green drums for both them and for Life Pilot, who I recently saw in Brisbane, and they blew my goddamn mind. I could not believe it. So as you guys have a strong pool of talent, I feel, to draw from. Do you have enough venues? Like, if you could fix anything about the Adelaide scene, what would it be?
Getting people to show up. Buy tickets early.
Probably got enough venues, haven't we? Yeah, we got enough venues. It's just Adelaide is known for big bands bypassing us, right? And it's not uncommon that a band will come from overseas, or even Australian bands. They'll play Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and maybe Perth. And quite often they'll skip over Adelaide. It's right in the bloody way, and part of that is just the culture of Adelaide, where they're late ticket purchases, and I don't know what it is. It's not that cold at night, right? People can leave the house. So there's something weird in the culture of the city, but we have got a lot of venues. The trick is, just like anyone, who's your audience and what are they doing? And are they going to come out to those venues? Adelaide's pretty easy, right? There's venues there. It's not that hard to drive or park or do anything like some other bigger cities. So people can do it if they want. And we've seen that, sometimes, and other times it's really, really hard, particularly at sort of shorter notice. So yeah, it's got its venues, but also its challenges for other reasons.
As someone who grew up in Tassie, I feel like we had a very similar problem. There was obviously no big bands came, but even when national bands would come down for festivals or something, no one would bloody show up to them. That people would try to put on festivals, they would last a few years and die because people were so apathetic. And it's like, well, do you want a live music scene or not?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, but I think the other thing is that we're just a smaller population, right? It's a bit the same as Tassie. Like if you get 50 people into a small venue for a middle-sized Adelaide band, that's probably enough. And just that we would like to have 200 screaming fans at the front of the show. So, Sydney, Melbourne, you've got 5, 6, 8 times the population. Of course, you're going to get more people going out and doing that type of thing. So I think it's representative of where people are at with live music attendance anyway, to be honest.
It's fair. So as I mentioned before, I've spent today listening to your album, That Goes On There. Now, how long have you guys been working on this?
Since about January last year.
Mm-hmm.
We had a bit of a shake-up. It was February, March last year. We had a bit of a shake-up. One of our members left for family reasons, and it was all very amicable. But we had a big
boring
back pocket of, yeah, I know. But now we had a huge backlog of songs and riffs that we'd had just written that weren't touched because it was 4 people trying to herd cats, 3 people so much easier. And so it just started off that we'll just come up with an idea, a theme. So like the album cover that's on there, all the rest of the singles are pretty much the same. Yeah, like, let's just keep it as simple as possible and try and trick the algorithm into thinking that we're much bigger than we are, and just waterfall release. And it initially started as an EP, but as the songs just started coming out, it was like we were just dropping turds, and there's a song right there, and you're like, oh, wow, how'd that happen? And some of them we were really like they took 2 seconds to make, and there was others that took about 6 months. So it was just a work in progress. I think it was, let's just do something a little bit more substantial than 3 or 4 songs or a single, and it just morphed into what it is now.
Nice. Did you say that you had the cover art first?
Yeah.
That's not normally how it works. How did that?
I got bored one day and started making some stuff, and then it just happened. And then we had probably about 12 or so, a dozen different designs. And from those dozen different designs, we picked the album cover first, and I thought, well, let's use the rest of these as the singles, and then it's just a branded thing after that. So at least, if anything, over a year or so, however long it takes, if you see that, you know that it's us. That was the idea, right, that I had, at least. So
I like it. It's a hell of a good grunge album. It's so grunge that I was listening when I first put the record on. I was in the gym lifting weights, and by the end of it, I was a heroin addict. So it was pretty crazy. Like,
that's good to do. That's our aim in life, right?
100%. Yeah,
trying to get everyone converted. Oh, that's a good compliment, mate. I mean, it's interesting, Tom, because I think we're defined by an era to some degree. Grunge is definitely in our wheelhouse. It's like how we describe ourselves. It's how we like to be described, I guess, to some degree. But it's synonymous with what we were listening to in the 90s and the early 2000s, I guess. So it's kind of fun to be pigeonholed or sort of branded that way. But it's also there's a bit of a renaissance of what people call grunge at the moment, and it's mostly attended by people our vintage, right? So it is quite funny. You see all these triggered people walking around with Nirvana t-shirts, asking each other, name 3 songs, that type of philosophy, right?
Yeah.
It's super fun because here we are. We don't even smirk at that anymore. It's just it's really nice, I think, for younger generations to have that opportunity to come back and listen to music from a previous era, as we do when we're listening to the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and the Who and stuff like that. That's exactly the same thing, listening to older music, because it helps you contextualize your own brand and your own style, I guess. So
I wonder, like, apologies if I'm about to make anyone feel old. I was in grade 3 when Kurt died, so 1994. So I'm about to turn 40. And it got me thinking that obviously grunge is this thing that is so located in the early 90s. It is so evocative of that time. And it had me thinking, and I realize I'm improvising this question. You guys are probably going to be the worst people to ask because we're not Gen Z or whatever. But like, do you reckon there's a grunge happening right now? And in 30 years, they're going to be looking back at this period and just being like, oh my God.
I hope so. I think there is, much like grunge was a resurgence of punk with a different flavor. There's a lot of younger bands in Adelaide that we still haven't been able to get a gig with yet. There's a lot that we have, and probably at least half a dozen really good grunge bands in Adelaide right now, and then they're in their 20s. So there is, I think, a resurgence, and it may be something completely different. It may evolve, but I don't know about the other guys' ethos, but I figured if we're going to do it, we just do what we do. We don't have to overthink it, and just do it the best that we can. And with any luck, someone else will like it. And so far, I think we're sort of just starting to snowball a little bit, but unless you want to add anything else, fellas.
No, that's exactly right. I think we just write what we write because that's what we like and that's what comes into our head. And, we're not trying to be something, we're not trying to copy a certain type of writing or whatever. We just do what we do because that's how we grew up and what's sort of ingrained in whatever period. Like you, right? We have this period in the 90s where we were, the 3 of us were probably all just impressionable and listening to music, getting into music seriously, and that's what sticks. Yeah.
when you think back on that period, what are the albums that stand out to you?
Who's going
Oh,
first?
we've talked about a lot of these. Oh, look, there was this amazing time, wasn't there, when, in a very short period, the Black Album by Metallica and 10 by Pearl Jam and Nevermind by Nirvana and, Rage Against the Machine, all these classic albums, which are just landmark albums, were all released in a very short period. And, for me, when I was getting into, playing instruments and guitar, those sort of things were the songs that I was trying to learn just because that's how I learned guitar at the time. And it's funny, like I see my kids now, they're trying to, learn piano or whatever, and they're bored out of their brain. I don't know why they can't teach them better to inspire them, but they learn some crappy melodies. They don't like the songs. They don't want to practice. And I'm thinking, I was exactly the same. And eventually I was playing guitar and my teacher went, "This isn't working. You're not practicing. What do you want to actually play?" And I said, "I want to actually play the Eagles or, AC/DC or something, just because they're simple riffs on a guitar and you feel good when you play them." And that inspired me to practice. And so I started learning that stuff. And that worked for me. But I got off track a bit there.
No,
But
that's
no,
fine. I'm blown
yeah, yeah.
away that your music teacher, that's not the first question coming out of a music teacher's mouth is what kind of songs would you like to play? Sure, that is the first fucking thing I would ask if I was teaching someone something.
It's weird, isn't it? But they've got their set methods in a set book and they just, have to teach them the basic stuff of the whatever their system is. But yeah, I agree. And it's very hard also to teach a brand new piano player who's 8 years old to learn
Mm.
Taylor Swift, probably, right? So
Yeah. That, honestly, though, I'm in that position, and you might actually be able to help me with this. I have a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old who are both learning instruments. My 9-year-old son brought home the fucking cello. Gotta love that. But yeah,
yeah, go with it. He'll get a scholarship somewhere nice if he can
100%.
play that.
I'll live vicariously through him. Please make me lots of money. But yeah, what advice would you give for I guess, because it's a thing like they come home, they do their homework for half an hour, and then they do half an hour of music. It's just part of the afternoon. And what is someone who has obviously music lessons obviously grabbed you. Like, I don't know, what advice would you give?
I think it's like anything in life, isn't it? Whether it's whatever direction you want to go once you finish school. I mean, you can't figure it out probably when you're 9,
Mm,
but you sort of figure out what you and your peers like, and you get into something just naturally. If you
mm,
try and force a cello on someone and get them to play classical music that they don't like in an
yeah.
orchestra, 9 times out of 10 they won't pursue that because it's a dead end, and they won't practice and they'll just give it up after a year or
Mm,
two, won't they? So yeah, I think you just have to figure out what they like, and that is probably. I mean, you can expose them to lots of different things,
yeah.
as a parent. Sure, I mean, I can, and my wife and I talk about this a lot. We often play our kids music that we like. We just got playlists of. She was very much into sort of punk music. A little bit more. And she'll often play the bands that she liked 20 years ago, and I'll play the stuff that we just talked about, and the kids get impressions out of that.
Mm.
They do, and with their friends, they'll go to a party and they'll listen to Taylor Swift all day, but they've got a broader experience, so they'll figure it out.
It's heartbreaking when they don't like it. When you play something that you really,
Mm.
it's like, here, kids, Pantera. And then they're like,
Yeah.
this is awful. Like, get out.
Yeah, that's it.
Now,
Can't
having
dance at
said
this
that,
at a party.
I think it's also really fun too, like that they'll say that now, and then one day they'll be on the bus and or at a pub and some Pantera will play, and they'll tap along or they'll sing a line,
Uh,
and that'll make you as proud as punch because it has resonated. It's floated into their brain and it's stuck there somewhere. So
Yeah.
And all it takes is for them to meet another cool kid at in the playground at school, and whose dad also likes Pantera, and suddenly there's a commonality. So I think it's like to Dan's point too. Like there's what's cool, and then there's what's fun. So they'll all listen to the same music, and then I think like us all, we kind of all diverge into our different things that we enjoy listening to. I read some stat somewhere saying like 80% of the music you listen to, you would have done so by the age of 25, right? Yeah. So it's like very impressionable, and then you kind of set in your ways, I think, at a particular age, which is kind of sad, but it's also, it's our role as parents to get in now and make sure that they listen to the good stuff, right?
It's an interesting, like, as a guy around my age who got back into music journalism, I had to give myself a kick up the arse around 2021 and actually listen to bands and actually check out bands that have been around for the last 20 years, because of course, like a lot of people, you kind of stop finding new bands after after about 25. And it came to a head because a festival came out, Full Tilt in 2021. The only band on the bill I recognised was Frenzal Rhomb. And we're like, what's a North Lane? Who are these people? They're now one of my favourite bands. But at the time, I was like, what, Australian metalcore? Fuck off. Guys, one question I have about That Goes On There is the song Hey Yeah, is that a cover? Because something about that track is incredibly familiar.
No, it's not a cover. It could have been an appropriation. It could have been, but maybe that's just because we've been told that a few times with some of our songs, is that they say, it really reminds me of something I listened to when I was younger, but I can't put my finger on it. And it's sort of almost like it sounds fresher or something. And we're like, well, yeah, it's kind of what we're trying to do. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Somebody did bring a name up, but I just can't, for the life of me, remember the name of the song. It was a bit of an obscure one, but anyway.
Oh, fair. So lastly, guys, if you could tour with any band on the planet, who would it be? And feel free to have 3 separate answers.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Are we talking global tour?
Sure. Or wherever.
Sure.
Like, it could be down to the corner shops. Who gives a shit? Whatever, however you want to answer.
I'll answer, and I'll say I'd love to do a world tour with Alice in Chains, just because I think we'd line up nicely next to them. I think I'm assuming we would open for them, but from an experiential point of view, I think it'd be kind of cool for their listeners would also enjoy our music, but also I just think they'd be legendary people to tour with. I reckon that'd be kind of cool. That'd be one of those associations I think would fit really well with us.
So you were a William Duvall. You were a big fan?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, I think what he's done, sort of taken over that legacy, has just been incredible. And brilliant musicians, right? Like they're just elite at what they do.
The first time I heard Check My Brain, I actually got chills. I was like, that sounds, holy fuck, that's lame. Like, what? Yeah. Dan, what do you think, man?
I'm a bit torn. I was going to say Muse there, but then I think I'll change that to Rage Against the Machine. Yeah. And, it's probably for similar sort of reasons to Dave. I think there's some influence there in some of our songs. They're just an incredible... I mean, I've seen them live, and it's the best thing I've ever seen live. And I think, I'm not sure they'll ever tour again because Zach buggered his Achilles up jumping around stage. But if they ever did, that they'd probably be my ultimate.
The 2008 Big Day Out in Melbourne almost turned into a riot when they were on stage. It was fucking hell.
Yeah. I actually saw them 2008 Adelaide Big Day, and so that was unbelievable. Yeah, same memories.
Pardon me, is it Ben?
Yeah.
Ben,
no, I reckon I don't think we'd go well with them, but I'd love to tour with Mr. Bungle. Just legends in that band, Dave Lombardo and Patton himself. Like, they'd just be wild. Imagine the stupid shit they get up to. I'm sure that would just be fun, and I think my liver would want to punch myself in the face by the end of it. But yeah, that'd be cool.
Dude, did you see the most recent tour?
I did with the Melvins. Oh,
Yeah, I saw it in Brisbane. I have never been blue ball quite as hard as when they start playing hella weights. And I realized it takes me a second to first recognize the riff and then go, oh my God, I'm seeing Dave Lombardo, Scott Ian, Mike. They're about to do hella
yeah.
weights. Oh my fuck. What is my life? I'm in the pit and the intro, it swirls. And oh my God, it's amazing. It's this big long intro. All right, first verse. What the fuck is it? He started playing. I'm not familiar with them. I think they're called Seals and Croft.
Yeah. Summer Breeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, Summer Breeze. Like, we hanging his dick out the window and stuff. I love that he changed the words up. It's great.
Oh.
I looked at my friend. I'm like, "Did you hear that?" And he's like a bit deaf. He goes, "No, I didn't hear it." And I'll tell you afterwards. He couldn't hear anything after the Melvins because they were so damn loud, and that was fucking cool too.
Oh man, I was literally standing in the pit at one point, just smiling and sticking my finger up at Pat and mouthing, "Fuck you." That was phenomenal show. He literally at one point he had two microphones and he stuck them into Dave's kick drums. Oh, like fucking hell!
What are you doing? It's a crazy nut.
Well, and doing all of this while wearing a canary yellow Church of Scientology shirt
and that stupid hair that he's got at the moment.
Oh, guys, this has been rad. I think I've done well for the fact that I literally had 4 questions prepared. I normally have about 10. So, can tell Dave works in an office, by the way, with how expertly he's been muting himself when he's not.
Yeah, that's right. And also eating a mini pack of chicken crimpies for my lunch.
I didn't want to mention, I'm like, Dave is clearly on
rock and roll.
Right? Love it.
I'm assuming this is a radio interview and not a TV interview, there, right?
Look, it is. Man, they do. We honestly put them on YouTube, but they're very informal. Look at my background. No one cares. But if it is an issue, if you would like us to do audio only, we can. But people do like to see you.
Dave, he'll eat a bag of concrete and harden up. You'll be right, man.
Yeah, 100%. It'll be fine. Yeah, guys, this has been rad. Thank you very much. And yeah, man, all the best with it. And yeah, we'll see you on Christmas.
Fingers
crossed.
Cheers, mate.